Welcome to the first book club of 2022. I'm so excited. If you don't know what this is, I'm going to show you guys and review the last 8 books that I read, give you a quick summary, my thoughts, all of that, no spoilers. I've set maybe an unrealistic goal on Goodreads for this year, and I'm curious what your goals are, how many books you read last year, and how many you want to read this year. Big man wants attention so bad. And before I tell you about the first book, as always, let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought. I'm gonna start with the oldest book that I read, so I'm gonna try my best. I have started taking notes. So it is The Lying Room by Nikki French. Nikki French is actually a male and female married couple, so I thought that was really interesting. No idea how that works and the coordination works. It takes place near London. The main character's name is Neve. I wrote that. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So it starts with what do you see? Getting a text from her lover while making breakfast for her family. So she goes to see him at his little private flat area and he's there murdered. So she cleans up the crime scene and implicates herself, makes things messy. All that happens within like the first pages, so don't worry. There were definitely like some loose threads at the end, things that didn't quite get solved. So I rated this a 3.5 out of 5. Next book, Find Her by Lisa Gardner. Heard of this author for so long. My mom gave this to me a long time ago. Finally read it, so glad I did. I've since bought a bunch of books by her. Massive trigger warning for like sexual assault and just awfulness in this. It starts off very brutal, explaining a woman trapped in a box in extreme detail. I was getting panicked right at the beginning. I'm just gonna read some of my notes here, like verbatim. Then switches to a woman at a bar, tells the guy she wants to go home with him, and he slaps her. The bartender comes to rescue her, but quickly leads her off, and she recognizes him as a suspect in a previous disappearance. She wakes up in a garage and she looks through the garbage and finds like flower food as well as antifreeze in the garage. So she mixes that and kills the guy. So you realize right off the bat, this woman is not just an average person. Then you learn that that girl is Flora, the same as the girl in the box at the beginning, and she explains how she ended up in the box. So it switches between this and the perspective of a cop, and it's also like part of a series. You guys know I love that when it switches between that, because then you know like what's going on in the investigation as well as like the other side of it. And then as she's sleeping, despite having a million precautions, she gets kidnapped again. So it's super intriguing, really good. I rated it 4 out of 5. Definitely would recommend that. The next book is The Perfect Nanny by Lila Slimani. So this is translated from French, and some of the reviews said that they thought it was like kind of a weird translation in some parts. I didn't really see that. It takes place in Paris. So this is not a spoiler. It starts off with, the first sentence is, the baby is dead. So it's called The Perfect Nanny. That's how it starts. That really hooked me. So it's about this woman, Miriam. She has 2 kids, Adam and Mila. She was a stay-at-home mom for a while, but then she wanted to go and put her degree to use. So she gets a job and needs to hire a nanny. It starts off great. The nanny cleans, reorganizes everything, and the kids love her. Something very irritating is rudeness towards the nanny, and the racism was very irritating to read, in my opinion. And then I wrote page 80, they give you a different perspective from, I'm assuming, after the death at the trial. And then I wrote, Paul has issues, that's the husband. Then I wrote, question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't get the ending, disappointed, 2.5 out of 5. The next book is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware, and it was like one of the last Ruth Ware books of mine to read. Love her, she's one of my favorites. It starts off with a journal entry from 1994. The writer talks about how they have a secret and how there's a storm coming. And then it switches to talk about Hal, who's 21, she lives by the ocean, and she's broke. And then she gets a letter from a solicitor saying that her grandma died and that she inherited a substantial estate, but her grandparents died like decades ago. So you learn from a different perspective, the Mrs. Westaway was a tarot card reader, and what Cal does is give fake tarot card readings as her job. And then the scary people that she owed money to like broke into her house, intimidated her, demanded the money. So because of that, she decides she has nothing left to lose. So she goes to the funeral to see if she can try and get some money. So this is one of the books that I could not stop thinking about. Like, I couldn't sleep. It was just always in my head because Ruth Ware just paints like such a picture and such a world that you just like get lost into. And then I wrote, everything always wraps up so nice in her books. Love it. And I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. All right, the next book it's kind of a funny story by Ned Bazzini. So I bought this book a long time ago, like when I was a teenager. I've recently been sometimes reading like a lighter, easier read on top of things, but this was not what I thought it was gonna be. So definitely a trigger warning for depression, suicide. So it's about a young boy. It definitely took me a while to read this, and I read it in segments so it didn't like bum me out because it was like very depressing, and the young boy has a very negative, depressed teenager outlook on life, and that's who the perspective is by. So it's easy to get lost in that, but then I got even more upset because I really felt for this young boy character, and then I realized that the author, Ned, died to suicide in 2013. And then I saw that he said that the book is based on his life, 85%, and that just breaks my heart. So in this book, the boy also has eating problems, which I can really relate to. And one night he wants to kill himself. He goes to a bridge. He's prepared to do it. Then he decides he should just go to the hospital because that's what you're supposed to do, but he doesn't realize like what they're gonna do, lock him up in the psych ward. He really second guesses his depression, his feelings, hopes that he's not attention seeking and all that, and like I said, you really feel for his character. So yeah, this was really good, really so sad. The next book is False Witness by Karen Slaughter. I heard about this a lot in a Facebook reading group that I was in for a little bit. It was so fun. I think I talked about it in the last one, but one day I just got a notification that it was deleted, and I was like, what? This was really good. It starts in 1999, talking about a 14-year-old girl, Callie, working for this asshole, really bad man. He's been manipulating her into doing things, and she finds out that he's been filming everything and showing everyone, all the friends, the whole neighborhood. She's just the little girl babysitter, and so she threatens to tell his wife, and he attacks her, and so she fights back. Once again, this is all at the beginning of the book. She really injured him, so she calls her sister, and her sister comes and they make it look like he just disappeared. Fast forward later on, and this takes place during COVID, which is very weird. So they're talking about like masks and distancing and all that, really strange. So then it goes to a point of view of a lawyer named Lee, and she gets called into a rape case, and she's asked for specifically by name, so she's intrigued. And she gets there, and who is it but it is that asshole that her and her sister both babysat's son. So she needs to defend him because she's the lawyer. However, she does believe that he did these rapes, and she is worried that he knows what they did to his dad. And then I wrote, holy shit, so good. And then another point, so good. Excited to read others of hers that I got. I also wrote warnings, violent sexual assault descriptions, gory, dark, drug addiction / abuse. I also thought it was very interesting. Her name was Karen Slaughter because it fits with the book, so I looked it up, and that is her actual name. The next book is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This is the author of Perks of Being a Wallflower. I heard that it's very scary, so I had to get it. It's very long. It's like almost 700 pages. So it starts off with a 50 years ago scene, and it's like a scary scene with a little kid running off, and he runs into the woods, and there's like a whole bunch of like weird creatures and scary old women and stuff. And then it switches to 7-year-old Christian and his mom, who leave an abusive relationship in the middle of the night and like move to a new town to start fresh. The boy gets drawn into those same woods, just following a cloud that he said was talking to him. And on page 36, he, in the woods, feels a tree that feels like flesh, and that almost did it for me right then and there. and they reference a tree a couple of times. And then 17-year-old Mary is driving home from her boyfriend's house, and then she sees Christopher 6 days later just on the roads near the woods. So very long book, as you can see. Lots happened. However, it should have been over at like page 500. It was done. The story was over. Everything was done, but then it just kept going and going and going. Then I looked on Goodreads and lots of other people said the same. So it was very good, and I hope he writes more like this, but I hope he just like edits. And then the last book is called Goodnight Beautiful by Amy Malloy. It starts off very engaging, and it gives the impression right off the bat that you cannot trust the narrator, and I love that. It confused me so many times, like so Annie and Sam are newlyweds that just moved to this new city that Sam used to live in. So my notes that I wrote down don't make sense because of some of the things. So Sam is a therapist and has his therapist sessions in the bottom of this big like old house with tons of history. And one day one of the perspectives is cleaning out one of the rooms upstairs in the house and realizes that they can hear everything through the vents that's happening in these therapy sessions. So they start like sitting down, listening and taking notes, and it's very intriguing. So I wrote good but not a solid ending. Those were all my notes for that. Yeah, it was very good, very creepy, and I love that I just kept on getting confused. Usually I hate that, but it was done so good because I know I was supposed to. I'm currently reading The Truth About Melody Brown by Lisa Jewell, and I only have like 20 pages left, and I don't want to finish it because it's so good. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.